Hey there, Ride the Car Guy here, and today we are going to swap out the front shock and spring on the Titan. There's really two reasons I'm doing this. First of all, this truck has a ton of miles, and this is on the stock suspension. It has 215,000 miles, so I'm just looking for a refresh. And secondly, I'd also like to get some leveling done. So I really don't like the way that the truck sits stock with the bed up higher, and of course the cab a little bit lower. So I'm looking to lift that up a little bit and just level things out. For the shock, I went with Bilstein, and All Dogs Off-Road hooked me up with their prototype Titan spring. So not only are we going to be able to get this leveled and get it lifted a little bit, but I get to try out totally new springs from All Dogs. Super exciting. I have the Titan lifted, but before I lifted it, I took my measurements from the center of the hub to the fender so we can see how much lift we get out of these new springs. To lift it, I just used the front cross member, lifted it up, and of course supported both sides with some jack stands. So let's get this wheel off and get started on this project. Once we have the tire off, we have four things to contend with. We have our three studs at the top of the strut, and we have our giant bolt at the bottom that needs to be removed. But this one we are going to do after we've already loosened the three at the top. I just find it nice when it's really secure in here and we can kind of really get on these nuts at the top without having to worry about this flopping around at the bottom. Now there's not really much to taking these off. We just grab our 14mm socket, and I'm going to use a breaker bar just to break these loose and then just back them off. What I do like to do, however, is make sure I have a jack supporting the bottom of the knuckle. That way there's no stress on any of this. It's just being held up by that jack instead. One on the side and one on the back are pretty corroded, so I'm going to go grab a little wire brush and just kind of scrape off some of the loose rust so I can get a positive kind of lock on that one. So the one in the back is rounded off, which is super great, just my favorite. So I'm going to grab a one size lower, a 13, and this is kind of a throwaway, so if I have a bunch of these. I'm going to try to hammer it on here and see if I can get it to bite. If not, I'll have to get one of those recovery sockets. All right, that made things substantially worse. So I'm going to have to go buy one of those sockets that kind of bite in and twist onto on a stripped out nut. So let's go do that. All right, I'm back from the store, and I went and got myself a set of bolt extractors. So I actually tried one of these. Actually, there's a YouTube short about it, but I tried one of these when I had issues with an oil pan bolt, and it worked wonderfully. So I'm going to grab this, hammer it on there, and hopefully we can get this nut off to take out this strut. So we have it on there pretty darn good. And the beauty of these is the harder you twist, the more it digs into the actual nut. So, all right, let's see here. All right. Yes, it appears that it is. So we're going to press our luck, and I'm going to throw the impact on it. So I went from the top, grabbed my impact. I didn't go full bore. I set it one setting down from max, just in case something went crazy, but it came right off. And so definitely, you know, not a sponsor, of course, but these Irwin bolt extractors have saved me more than once now. And it's very, very easy to use. You just slap it on there, tap it a couple times with a hammer, and you're done. So we have that out. Take off the other two, and now we're going to go take the lower bolt off to remove the coilover. Good stuff. These nuts fought me all the way off, which is super, super annoying, but that's all right. We have all three off. So now we're ready to go to the bottom, take out the big bottom bolt, and this puppy should slide right out. Okay, so I'm definitely done playing around today. So I'm gonna grab my 19mm wrench, throw it on the nut over here, and then on this side, I'm gonna grab my impact and just set it to the max setting, grab some ear protection, and go knock this bolt out. I always get that wrong. I had the wrench on the wrong side. It had to be flipped, so the wrench was in the back. But now we have the jack supporting the bottom of the knuckle, so I'm just going to loosen that. There we go, and you can see it start to drop. Pull that bolt out, yank that out, pull that whole assembly out. There we go. And there's our strut assembly removed. Looking just beautiful too. Now if you take a look at the two assemblies, here's my new one. I have a All Dogs Off-Road, actually prototype spring for the Titan. Super excited about that. And then a Bilstein shock, and that of course is the stock spring and shock that came on the Titan. So as you can see, not only is the spring a lot beefier, but of course there's additional coils as well. It's tighter wound. And one thing I love about this setup is that the lift for the truck comes from the tension of the spring, not from making this assembly any longer. So it is very, very marginally longer, but it's not substantial, right? It's not a huge amount. So we'll try to get this in without removing anything else, but we may have to remove the outer tie rod because I did on the other side. But let's go try it first and see if we can get this to squeeze in. Now we have new nuts for our top hat here. We're just gonna back those off. And this can really go in one of two ways, right? It can go in like this, or it can go in like this, flipped around. If you look at the studs at the top and then look at the holes in the upper coil bucket, you'll see that, you'll see which way it has to go in. So in my case, it has to go in like this. So let's try a few things. Let's go in the top first. Let's see if that works. Ooh, oh, all right, there you go. Once that's in, get your bolts to align here. There we go. Awesome. Well, that was really easy. So, get that to line up there, sit nice and tight. Excellent. So that was really easy. I just went in top first, and then obviously just slid the bottom of the shock through this area here, and then lined up the bolt holes and put them in. So I'm just gonna get these top mounting nuts on here, basically just enough to get the stud all the way through the nut, and then we'll worry about tightening them down here in a little bit. I just don't want this thing to fall out or anything. So for this bottom bolt, we're gonna have to push down. I can push down on the rotor. If you do, be careful. Maybe put a lug nut on one of your studs so it doesn't flop around. Or you can push down right on the knuckle here. This part can be a little hard. I may end up using my knee up here to push down, because in that way I can have my both hands free to get this bolt in here. In my opinion, this is kind of the most difficult part because you feel like you need 3 hands, but we need to be pushing down on the steering knuckle and then push the shock inward and then push the bolt in. So I'm going to try to get my foot on here to have this downward pressure on this whole assembly. That way, obviously, there's enough room to push this in, which we're getting real close. So I'm going to push down, push this in. Come on. All right, I have it most of the way seated here. I can see the bolt hole starting to come through. So I'm just going to grab something soft here, just hammer this a little bit. All right, I feel like with one more good push, we'll get this through here. If you got a friend willing to help, this is the time. Because having to push down on this and get these two things aligned is it's pretty difficult. So what I'm going to do is try to get a taper on one side and kind of push it through there. See if that will help. So I just push this little taper in, and that will align it. And now all we have to do is press down. Awesome. Okay. There we go. Woo! There we go. Honestly, that's pretty much it for this job. All we need to do is just get your torque wrench and put the nuts at the top and of course the bolt at the bottom to their proper spec, which I'll show on the screen right now. Once those are all tightened, that's it. Throw your tire back on, tighten that down to spec, drop the truck, and you're ready to rock. This is actually a pretty simple job once you're ready to really manhandle this thing and get it into place. But again, the beauty is we didn't have to remove anything else. So we literally just took off the tire, pulled out the assembly, put it back in. One thing I will say when you're tightening down to spec, just go ahead and lift the entire assembly from the bottom of the knuckle at its normal resting place. So basically lift it until the truck starts to lift up. And that way, when you do tighten down the shock, it's kind of in its neutral position as opposed to, droop down like it is right now. If you do have any questions or comments, please go ahead and put them down in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, please go ahead and help me out. Scroll down and click that like button. Also, be sure to subscribe for more content like this, and we'll see you in the next one.